Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this particular video, I'd like to discuss my thoughts on episode 5 of the anime series Arpeggio of Blue Steel, Ars Nova. And this was certainly a quite unexpectedly odd episode, I have to say, in that we're only briefly picking up with the crew of the I-401 in the sort of pre-credits sequence in the aftermath, in the wake of the battle with the Haruna and Kirishima fleet of fog vessels, respectively, who had their asses effectively handed to them by the I-401 and her crew, Gunzo, Iona, and the rest. They've returned to dock, and they need to restock their weapons complement. Of course, they've exhausted the entire complement of their erosion missiles in their battle with Haruna and Kirishima, respectively, and now they're being debuted to this brand new kind of warhead. It's said to be bigger, badder, bolder, just a better sort of fighting machine called the Vibration Warhead. And Gunzo takes note of the fact that there's this little girl sort of in the military complex, and it's like, why is she there? Of course, he did have a brief run-in with her, with Iona, when they were going to that, naval sort of cemetery a couple episodes back, and a bunch of maids came and told her to get back to the mansion, report back to the house, what have you. So he's taking note of it, and we're wondering, what's the story here? Now, this is the same girl that ended up finding Haruna in the aftermath of her battle, and she seemed, at least to me, like she could be a mental model herself. She was using terminology as she picked up the sand, the soot of the disintegrated, fleet of fog vessels, and saying something about nanotechnology, almost as if she could sense it. And so I knew something wasn't up to snuff with this particular character, just as a precursor to her finding Haruna and bringing her back to her mansion. So essentially, Haruna wakes up, and she's got this little girl obsessed with her. She's trying to change her clothes, get her out of that big sort of trench coat affair that she's wearing, or tell her not to walk around in just lingerie, that kind of thing. And the dynamic between these characters, it was very unexpected for the whole episode to be focused on this little girl and Haruna. And as it turns out, much as I speculated in my previous episode discussion video, Kirishima, who is actually not dead, not wiped out from existence. That ornamentation, that jewel that Haruna was obsessed with keeping her hands on, actually contains the brain center of the mental model that is Kirishima. Now, she lost her physical appearance, and I assume, all but temporarily, she'll probably have another one at some point. But the point is, she is, for all intents and purposes, and lack of a better term, alive. And thus, she uses some of Haruna's nanotech to become a walking, talking, automaton stuffed toy bear. Now this, just rocks Maki, the little girl's world, when she sees this, because she believes that Haruna is very much like her, that she's a techie, that she creates technology. And there are little hints, peppered all throughout that get the suspicion of Kirishima up. They have to report back to their fleet of fog leader, Kongo, who, they tell basically, we think this new warhead that's being invented, that's being fitted on all these human beings' vessels that are going to be fighting us now, these vibration warheads, we think the inventor existed here, and we can find out information about it. So essentially, Kongo, sort of averts her original orders for Kirishima and Haruna to move on and meet one of the other mental models who are waiting for them. She says, okay, better yet, stay here, get the information, it could be beneficial to us. So of course, they're snooping around this house. There's a whole sort of fan service segment of bath time with the girls and everything like that. And you see that she's, this little girl, Maki, has a brandishing on her shoulder or barcode or what have you, that suggests she must be artificial. She is not, in fact, a mental model, however, but a being genetically created. Someone, created to be a center point of logic. From the beginning of this series, we've been following these fleet of fog mental model AIs, and they've been again and again understanding that humanity, human logic and strategy, as showcased by Gunzo respectively, is something they need to log on to and latch on to and understand in order to not be beaten and bested by human beings. In antithesis to this, sort of going back to the original battles between the Fleet of Fog and humanity, there was this guy who's, air quotes, the father of this little girl, who is now said to have been dead for a while, but as it turns out, Haruna and Kirishima uncover that he is still alive, very much on the brink of death, hiding in the basement of this mansion that this little girl is kept in, and, not allowed to go out in the outside world. but he is very much alive, and he was the creator of this girl, sort of in antithesis to their whole aspect of trying to tap into the mindset of humanity. He very much found himself in a precarious position with the Fleet of Fog oncoming, and they're losing battle after battle. He felt that he needed to come up with an artificial intelligence, something logical, something mechanical, or at least a hybrid of the two, to best the Fleet of Fog. And of course he created hundreds of these things, as is revealed once they find him in this basement of this mansion. And only 7 initially survived, and then only 1 finally survived, which is this little girl, Maki. So there's this very interesting rapport going on, where even Congo herself recognizes Haruna is not all there with everything. She's been obsessed with taking down terminology, verbal quotes, and things like that, and the associated emotional states and mental states of the people she's encountering. And this guy requests, very intriguingly, for them to befriend this little girl, Maki, to protect her. Very much as was his suspicion, once the military finds out mental models of the Fleet of Fog are there, they send the military just as the episode's about to close, and you have Haruna really mulling over what this all means, the emotions she's been feeling. Even Iona has a brief conversation with another mental model AI toward the beginning of the episode, just before the whole rest of the crux of the episode transfers to Haruna and these other characters, where she's saying, you know, in those last moments, I felt this groundswell of emotional sentiment. What was this? And she has it explained to her that there's a level of satisfaction and a level of fear and anxiety and, you know, resigning to the fact that they were effectively beaten. These were all emotions felt by Haruna. So in a very sort of similar yet different way to Takao, who is obsessed with humanity in a very excitable way, you have Haruna in a very dramatic, deep, and sort of introspective way, looking at her encounters with human beings. And this little girl Maki, is now the crux of her focus. So where they will go from here in the next episode, I think is anyone's guess. At least it is for me. I have no idea what they're going to do next with this series, because this episode was flat out, I mean, with all the fan service and everything like that, it just sort of really went against the grain with everything we've seen up to this point. And I think if it were not for those very deep and engaging aspects of the mentalities of these characters, I almost would have been completely put off by this episode from what we've seen previously. So I am going to be intrigued to check out the next and see if they get back more to form with that episode. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of the 5th episode of Arpeggio of Blue Steel, Ars Nova. If it put you off, if you were stymied by it, or, you know, you even sat through it to begin with. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you later. Peace.